morning and welcome back to the One of a Kind Financial Show Daily. I'm Mike Milligan, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. On Thursday, March 19th, 2026, the world lost a legend. Chuck Norris passed away at the age of 86 following a medical emergency at his home in Hawaii. He had just celebrated his 86th birthday on March 10th, and in true Chuck Norris fashion, posted on Instagram that day and said, "I don't age, I level up." Here's what makes his passing even more Chuck Norris. Just the day before, he was on the island training, still working out, and a close friend spoke with him on the phone. He was in good spirits and cracking jokes. That was Wednesday, but by Thursday, he was hospitalized, and by Friday morning, his family shared the news with the world. His family posted on Instagram, "It is with heavy hearts that our family shares the sudden passing of our beloved Chuck Norris yesterday. He was surrounded by family and was at peace." Now, someone online said it best. Chuck Norris isn't dead. We all died, and Chuck is fine. And honestly, that feels about right. But before we get to the legend, and let's talk about the man, because Chuck Norris, real life, was more impressive than any movie he ever made. Carlos Ray Norris was born May 10th, 1940, in Ryan, Oklahoma. He grew up humble. He wasn't born into money. He wasn't born into fame. He was a kid from a small town who joined the United States Air Force, got stationed in South Korea, and almost by accident stumbled into the martial arts. He started with judo, broke his shoulder 2 weeks in, and while walking through a Korean village one night, he saw a group of martial artists training outdoors in an art called Tang. That moment changed his life forever. He trained 5 hours a day. He failed his first black belt test. He came back 3 months later and passed. That's the thing about Chuck Norris. He didn't start as the toughest man in the room. He became the toughest man in the room. After his discharge from the military in 1962, he opened a karate studio in California with his brother Aaron. He eventually built over 30 karate studios across the country. He taught Priscilla Presley. He taught Steve McQueen. He taught Bob Barker and Donnie and Marie Osmond. His competitive record, 65 wins and 5 losses. He became the 6-time undefeated world professional middleweight karate champion, holding that title from 1968 until he retired in 1979. He won the Triple Crown in 1969 for the most victories of the year and was named Fighter of the Year by Black Belt magazine. He was the first Westerner to earn the 8th degree black belt in Taekwondo. And when competition wasn't enough, he went to Hollywood. He befriended Bruce Lee. He starred alongside him in The Way of the Dragon. Then came Mission in Action, Code of Silence, The Delta Force, and of course, what I remember him most for is Walker, Texas Ranger, which I got to watch with my grandparents when it aired on CBS back in the day. And that ran for 8 seasons and made him a household name in every living room in America. But Chuck Norris wasn't just an action star. He was a fitness icon. The man obsessed with staying in shape, and he didn't just talk about it, he lived it every single day, including the days leading up to his death. Even in his 80s, his weekly routine included 15-minute sessions on the Total Gym. Yeah, that gym that you remember from the infomercials that he also became famous for. He also took 2-mile fast walks, 30 minutes on the elliptical, 10 minutes of crunches, stretching, martial arts, training on the heavy bag, and pool workouts with his wife, Gina, by his side. And if you grew up watching late-night TV, and I know you did, you saw those infomercials. In 1996, Chuck Norris and Christy Brinkley became the faces of the Total Gym, and they didn't just do one commercial. They became the longest-running fitness infomercial in television history. Over 30 years, broadcast in more than 85 countries. Over 4 million units sold. He just didn't endorse the Total Gym. He used it every day. He believed in it. And that's what made it work. People trusted Chuck Norris because Chuck Norris was authentic. They say Chuck Norris doesn't need a gym. The gym needs Chuck Norris. And speaking of the internet, in the mid-2000s, Chuck Norris jokes became one of the first true internet memes. And they weren't making fun of him. They were making him immortal, building his legacy. You know the jokes. You heard them. You may have told them. And today, I'm going to share a few of my favorites because that's exactly how Chuck would have wanted to be remembered. They say Chuck Norris didn't do push-ups. He did earth downs. Chuck Norris doesn't dial the wrong number. You answered the wrong phone. When the boogeyman goes to sleep at night, he checks his closet for Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris can divide by zero. Chuck Norris has counted to infinity twice. Superman wears Chuck Norris pajamas. Chuck Norris once kicked a horse in the chin. Its descendants are now known as giraffes. Chuck Norris can slam a revolving door. Chuck Norris can build a snowman out of rain. And God said, "Let there be light." Chuck Norris said, "Yes, please." One of my favorite Chuck Norris quotes or memes was Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone, pictured on one side, asking Chuck Norris, "How many push-ups can you do?" And Chuck Norris saying, "All of them." That's amazing, right? Because in true Chuck Norris fashion with memes, Chuck Norris isn't dead. He just left his body behind while traveling to conquer another world. Now, look, I know this is a financial show, and you might be wondering, Mike, why are we spending time on this? Why does Chuck Norris what does he have to do with financial planning? Everything, because we're talking about legacy today. See, I think a lot about legacy and what we do at One Oak Financial and what I talk about on the One of a Kind Financial radio show and what I talk about here on the daily podcast is when we build a one-of-a-kind financial plan, we're not just running numbers. We're not just optimizing tax brackets and positioning assets. We are building a blueprint for someone's legacy. Legacy is the financial plan that takes care of your family when you're no longer sitting at the table. Legacy is the values you instilled in your family, the moments you never missed, the people you educated, coached, and planned for. Legacy is not about how much money you made. It's about how much of yourself you gave. I live by the motto, never miss a moment. And I'll tell you what, Chuck Norris never missed a moment. He showed up. He built. He taught. He gave. He entertained. He inspired. And even now, and even in death, the man is making us laugh and making us think. See, that's legacy. He is one of a kind. And I want to leave you with something that brings this home. The rapper Macklemore, in his song Glorious, said something that I think defines legacy better than any financial textbook ever could. He said, "I heard you die twice. Once when they bury you in the grave, and the second time is the last time somebody mentions your name." Let that sit for a moment, because Chuck Norris was buried once. But the second death, it's never coming, folks. Not for him, at least. Not with the jokes, not with the movies, not with the Total Gym infomercials at 2 a.m, not with the lives he touched. And here's my challenge to you today. What are you building that outlasts you? What does your financial plan say about who you are and what you leave behind? Because legacy isn't an accident, it's planned. At One Oak Financial, we do that. We build a one-of-a-kind financial plan because you live a one-of-a-kind life. And those plans make sure your name is mentioned. It's mentioned with pride, with purpose, and with intent. Chuck Norris, I like to think, is with my Granny Elizabeth right now, because I'm never going to let her name go to waste. My grandpa Walter, never going to let his name go. They didn't make as big of an impact as Chuck Norris did, but I remember sitting on that couch together with them and watching Walker, Texas Ranger. And so even in Chuck Norris's death, I again get to say the name, Walter and Elizabeth Calder. Thank you, Chuck, for what you did. Until next time, this has been Mike Milligan with the One of a Kind Financial Show Daily. To reach out to One Oak Financial, please go to www.oneoakfinancial.com. And you can also text the word ideas to 600-700. I'd love to hear either on our social media, in the comments of this below, your memories of Chuck Norris. Until tomorrow, be one of a kind.